Last week, I got to chat with Pinterest expert Megan Williamson, and she is amazing and has so many good tips and tricks. But when you were listening to that episode, it may have felt a bit like drinking from a water hose. She has so much information, and it's all really good, but it's really a lot. So this week, I decided to give you a very simple Pinterest strategy that you can use starting today that doesn't feel overwhelming. Hi, I'm Andi Smiley, your friendly podcast guide, and the podcast coach for women who want to grow their podcast without burning out. I share practical podcast tips, stories from my own journey, and wisdom from some of the smartest podcasters out there. Today, I'm walking you through the 4 core things every podcaster needs to do to create a Pinterest strategy that works. At the end of the episode, I'll wrap things up with just one thing you can start with, so you don't feel overwhelmed. Now, step 1 for your simple Pinterest strategy is to optimize. Discover the exact keywords your ideal listeners are searching for. Pinterest is not a social media platform. It is a search engine. It's actually one of the top search engines behind Google and YouTube. And because of this, figuring out what your Pinterest keywords are is essential. And let me back up and tell you what a keyword is. A keyword is just a word or a phrase that your ideal listener is going to be typing into the search bar in Pinterest. For example, if your podcast is about budgeting for families, your listener might be typing in budgeting tips for big families. And that's the exact kind of phrase or keyword that you want to build your pins around. You'll want to use these keywords in your images, as well as in your pin titles and in your pin descriptions. And honestly, just kind of sprinkled throughout your whole profile. These keywords help you to be found quicker and easier. And if you want help figuring out what your keywords are, just go to Pinterest and type in some words that you think your listeners might be searching for, and don't press enter. Just look at the words in the drop-down menu before you press enter, and that shows you what people are actually searching for with similar words and topics. And then you can use those words in your pins on your boards throughout your whole profile. Step 2 is the setup. You want to set up your Pinterest profile for podcast growth. The first thing that you need to do is you want a business account, not a personal account. When you have a business account, the biggest thing is you can see the stats about your pins. So you can figure out which pins are really resonating with your ideal audience and which ones aren't working as well, so that you can make sure that you are making the stuff that's working for your people. And when your Pinterest profile is set up, you want your profile name, your bio, and your boards to be sprinkled with those search-friendly keywords that we talked about in step 1, so that your ideal listener can find you super easily. Step 3 is to plan it. Create your personalized weekly Pinterest strategy. And when it comes to your Pinterest strategy, consistency beats volume every single time. So if you know for sure that you can do 1 pin a week, then start there. Don't try to do 15 pins at the beginning to set yourself off right, but then forget to make pins for the next 2 weeks. That isn't how this works. You want to be consistent. You want Pinterest to know that you're going to keep showing up and keep creating fresh content. When I first started, I did 1 pin per episode, and it worked for me. And that's all I did. And honestly, some of those pins are still bringing me listeners right now. So I promise it works even if it's just 1 pin a week. And I have slowly worked my way up to 5 pins per week. So now I do 5 pins per week, and that works for me. And truly, I still create them all, usually on Mondays. That's my main work day. And then I schedule them to go out throughout the week. So you just need to figure out what is going to work best for you and your podcast, and then consistently do that every single week. Step 4 is to pin and grow. My favorite tool for creating pins is Canva. It saves me so much time and brain power, and it already has all of the correct measurements and everything for pins, so you don't have to try and guess to make sure it's the right size that Pinterest likes and all of that stuff. One of my favorite parts about Pinterest is that when you create a pin, it's not going to just live for a couple of days and then die like on Instagram or TikTok. Pins circulate and the results compound over weeks and months. And listeners are still finding my podcast from pins that I made 8 months ago. And the beauty is those pins are definitely not perfect. This is where I see people get stuck when they're trying to design the perfect pin. But like the saying goes, done is better than perfect. Just start trying things. Start creating pins and putting them out there, and you will see which ones work really well for your audience and which ones they don't like so much. But you can't figure that out until you start creating pins. So here are the 4 steps again. Step 1, optimize with the right keywords. Step 2, set up your account for success. Step 3, plan a strategy that fits your life. And step 4, start planning consistently. If you want to try this on your own, start with opening a Pinterest business account and finding 3 keywords your listener might be searching for. And if you want to skip the trial and error, get everything you need, including video trainings, plug and play templates, and a guided workbook, you can grab Pinterest Magic for Podcasters through the link in the show notes. Next week, I'm sharing another way to promote your podcast that doesn't use social media: podcast swaps. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you next week.